In our headlines on this Friday, April 17th, here in South Korea, U.S. President Donald Trump claims diplomatic delegations from Washington and Tehran may meet in Islamabad to seal a peace deal this weekend, as Iran has, quote, agreed to almost everything. Meanwhile, President Jae-myung will join a virtual global summit on this Friday, led by his counterparts in the UK and France, aimed at ensuring freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. Also, here on the local front, for those of you here who have yet to make weekend plans, do think about a trip to the local theatre to watch the new horror film Salmokji Whispering Water that has been receiving haunting reviews. U.S. President Donald Trump claims diplomatic delegations from Washington and Tehran may meet in Islamabad for peace talks this weekend, and that he might be there as well. Our Kim Do-yeon has the latest.
U.S. President Donald Trump says a comprehensive agreement with Iran is within reach, claiming Tehran has agreed to almost all American terms to halt its nuclear weapons program. Speaking to reporters on Thursday local time, Trump stated that the two sides are close to finalizing a deal to end the conflict.
We had to make sure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. And we're at that. They've agreed to that. They've totally agreed to that. They've agreed to almost everything.
Negotiations are expected to resume this weekend, with Trump naming Islamabad, Pakistan as a potential venue to finalize the agreement.
I would go to Pakistan, yeah. Pakistan has been great. They've been so good. Islamabad, I might go, yeah.
While projecting optimism on the diplomatic front, the U.S. president publicly criticized Pope Leo XIV regarding the ongoing crisis. Trump claimed the pontiff supports Tehran possessing a nuclear weapon, a statement the Vatican has not made, using the assertion to defend his administration's hardline approach.
I'm not fighting with him. The Pope made a statement. He says Iran can have a nuclear weapon. I say Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And if the Pope looked at the 42,000 people that were killed over the last 2 or 3 months as a protester with no weapons, no nothing, I mean, you take a look at that. So I can disagree with the Pope. I have a right to disagree with the Pope.
Domestically, the Trump administration cleared a major legislative hurdle to maintain its current military posture. The U.S. House of Representatives narrowly rejected a war powers resolution designed to force a halt to U.S. military strikes against Iran. The Democrat-led measure failed in a 214 to 213 vote, allowing current operations to continue without congressional interference as the administration pursues a final negotiated settlement. The ongoing ceasefire, in an attempt to come to an agreement between the U.S. and Iran, will end next Wednesday. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, a 10-day truce between Israel and Lebanon has been declared by U.S. President Donald Trump and reaffirmed by his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu. But as our Isingje says, tensions remain in place.
U.S. President Donald Trump announced on Thursday that Israel and Lebanon have agreed to a 10-day ceasefire after 6 weeks of fighting between Israeli forces and the Iran-backed group Hezbollah. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed Israel's participation, but said troops will remain in a 10-kilometer security zone in southern Lebanon, signaling no immediate withdrawal during the truce.
I agreed to a pause, or more accurately, to a temporary ceasefire of 10 days, to try to move forward with the agreement we began discussing during the ambassadors' meeting in Washington.
Hezbollah expressed conditional support, saying any ceasefire must include a complete halt to attacks across Lebanon and no freedom of movement for Israeli forces. The group warned that any continued military presence would justify armed resistance. The conflict began in early March following joint U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran, which prompted Hezbollah to launch rockets into northern Israel. Since then, more than 2,000 people in Lebanon have been killed, over 1 million displaced, and tens of thousands of homes damaged or destroyed. Israel reports limited civilian casualties, but confirmed military losses in the fighting. In the hours before the ceasefire, both sides continued cross-border strikes. Rare direct talks were also held in Washington, with Trump proposing a future White House meeting with Netanyahu and Lebanese President Joseph Aoun. However, major issues remain unresolved, especially the future of Hezbollah's weapons. Lebanese officials say disarmament cannot be forced and must come through negotiation, raising doubts about whether the ceasefire will lead to lasting peace. Previous ceasefires between Israel and Hezbollah have failed to hold, with clashes continuing even after agreements took effect, suggesting this truce may offer only a temporary pause in the conflict. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung will join a global summit online on this Friday, led by his counterparts in the UK and France, aimed at ensuring freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. Our Chung Hye-rim reports.
President Lee Jae-myung will join a virtual summit led by the UK and France on Friday Korea Standard Time, according to the Blue House. The initiative, co-chaired by French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, seeks a multilateral solution to secure passage through the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most vital shipping lanes. Around 70 to 80 participants, including countries and international organizations, have been invited. A senior presidential official said that Seoul decided to join the talks, citing both national and global interests. The official added that President Lee may deliver remarks during the meeting, and staff were preparing for this possibility. The meeting's agenda covers a broad range of issues with a heavy focus on energy supply chains and the broader conflict in the Middle East. However, the official stressed that this international mission will be strictly defensive in nature. The talks come as the United Kingdom is distancing itself from Washington's current policy. Prime Minister Starmer said earlier this week that Britain could not support a proposed blockade of the Strait of Hormuz by U.S. President Donald Trump. France has also emphasized the need to restore free navigation, with President Macron calling for a coordinated, strictly defensive multinational effort. Macron added that the mission will only commence once hostilities in the Middle East have officially ended. Analysts say Friday's summit could help align separate diplomatic and security tracks into a more unified international response. Chung Hye-rim, Arirang News.
Here in South Korea, overseas travel is looking to become even more expensive as airlines are poised to further raise surcharges as jet fuel prices continue to soar. Our economics correspondent Kim Jun-hong touches upon this costly repercussion of the conflict in the Middle East.
People heading overseas through Incheon International Airport say their next trips may not come anytime soon.
I'm traveling to San Francisco and Los Angeles, but going overseas is definitely starting to feel more expensive.
I planned a graduation trip to Europe, but it's become too expensive, so I've decided to delay it.
As the U.S.-Iran war stretches beyond 6 weeks, fuel surcharges have jumped to record highs, rising multiple times compared to before the war. With jet fuel prices surging due to the prolonged tensions, airlines are raising surcharges at a rapid pace. According to the aviation industry, the benchmark used to set next month's fuel surcharge, the average price of Singapore jet fuel from March 16 to April 15th rose to about $5.10 per gallon. That pushes the surcharge to the highest bracket, level 33. The surcharge stood at level 6 before the war, but in the space of just 2 months, it surged past level 18 to reach 33, marking the fastest increase on record. This surpasses the previous peak of level 22 seen during the Russia-Ukraine war. Pressure on the airline industry is building quickly. Fuel typically accounts for about 30% of an airline's operating costs, so a surge in jet fuel prices is bound to hit earnings hard. And with limited room to pass on those costs through surcharges alone, airlines are coming under strain. An industry official told Arirang that fuel surcharges cannot be raised freely as they are capped under a tiered system. Once the highest tier is reached, as in May, surcharges can no longer be raised even if jet fuel prices continue to climb. That leaves airlines to absorb the extra cost themselves, putting growing pressure on their bottom line. Facing mounting pressure, most airlines have shifted into emergency management mode. Some are taking steps to cut costs, including unpaid leave for cabin crew and route reductions. Kim Junong, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung has reminded public officials about the immense responsibility entrusted upon them to manage public resources. Speaking at a progress briefing on government-funded research institutes at the Blue House earlier on this Friday, he asserted that their authority and budgets come entirely from the public. He also emphasized the impact of their decisions on the daily lives of people and urged them to do their best. Up next, we share with you the story of a wolf that ran away from the zoo in the city of Daejeon before being caught safe and sound days later. Our Ian Jin covers the fortunate tale of this furry fugitive.
A 2-year-old wolf named Neukgu escaped from Daejeon Old World Zoo on April 8th between 9 and 9:30 a.m. Neukgu was captured and transferred back to the zoo's veterinary hospital in the early hours of Friday. Medical examinations confirmed that all its vital signs, including pulse and body temperature, are within normal ranges, but further monitoring will be needed as the anesthesia wears off. According to the Daejeon Fire Headquarters and search authorities, the wolf was spotted at approximately 11:45 p.m. Thursday night near an expressway about 2 kilometers away from the zoo. Search teams successfully captured the animal using a tranquilizer gun at around 12:45 a.m. Friday. According to officials, the search started immediately after its escape, with hundreds deployed. There had been a couple of times when authorities got close, but Neukgu remained evasive. Even South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung publicly prayed for Neukgu's safe return in a post on social media. Neukgu's escape caused public concern for the animal's safety, but also the general public's, with a wild animal on the loose. Animal rights groups were also concerned whether Neukgu would be returned alive, as a puma that escaped from the same zoo in 2018 was killed during the capture process. Criticism also arose regarding the management of Old World's lax security system, raising calls for a comprehensive review of the animal care environment to prevent a recurrence. Born in 2024, Neukgu is part of a program at Old World to restore the Korean wolf, which once roamed the Korean peninsula but is now considered extinct in the wild. Ian Jin, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, for those of you here who have yet to make weekend plans, do think about a trip to the local theatre to watch the new horror film Salmokji, Whispering Water, that has been garnering haunting reviews. Our culture correspondent Park Go-nu tells us why.
A must-see movie in Korea right now is Salmokji, Whispering Water, a horror film about eerie events unfolding at a haunted reservoir. The film has drawn over 1 million viewers as of Friday, the 10th day since its release, while surpassing its break-even point of 700,000 within a week. No film released in Korea this year has reached that milestone quicker.
The real site has long been associated with local ghost stories, with rumors that spirits are often seen in the area. This has fueled public curiosity, which in turn has helped drive interest in the film and its success.
It has also held onto top spot at the box office for several consecutive days, raising expectations that it could become one of the biggest horror hits in recent years. This is even more surprising as a horror film, typically considered a niche genre, is performing well despite the recent slump in the cinema industry.
Since Exuma, there has been a perception that Korean audiences favor occult films. Building on that momentum, recent hits like The King's Warden have helped draw viewers back to cinemas as people are once again rediscovering the appeal of a theater experience.
But the popularity doesn't stop at cinemas as viewers are expanding their experience by visiting the actual filming location late at night. In recent days, hundreds of cars have been gathering at the site, turning it into something of a pilgrimage.
We see about 20 visitors during the day, but around 100 to 200 vehicles come almost nightly. The number isn't dying down and actually continues to rise, so we're staying alert.
Due to safety concerns, the local government of Yesangung County in Chungcheongnam-do Province, where the real Salmokji is located, has recently prohibited visits from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. the following day. The county also noted that it'll enhance safety measures by installing additional CCTV cameras and nighttime lighting, while seeking to help visitors make the most of their experience from the film to the location where it was filmed. 박건우, Arirang News.
And in other news now, the UN Memorial Cemetery here in South Korea marks its 75th anniversary this year. In light of this occasion and the ongoing wars across the world, my colleague Kim Bo-kyung made her way to the cemetery with a prayer for the fallen and a reminder about the importance of peace. Do take a listen.
The only UN memorial cemetery in the world where a 17-year-old Australian soldier lies after fighting during the so-called Forgotten War. The UN Memorial Cemetery in Korea marked its 75 years of history since its establishment in 1951. After being under UNC and UN management until 1974, it began to be managed jointly by 11 countries under the name of the International Commission. Following the transition of authority, most of the archives were transferred overseas, but the UNMCK was able to obtain some this year.
네, 20장의 사진이 있는데 이 중 가장 눈여겨볼 만한 사진은 혹시 뭘까요?
저는 뭐 다 좋습니다만 그중에서 가장 눈에 띄는 거는 이 사진인 것 같습니다. 왜냐하면 1951년도 4월 6일 75년 전에 유엔 기념공원이 처음 만들어진 이 헌정식하는 사진인데요. 그 당시에 그 유엔군 사령관, 메가드 사령관 다음이죠. 그분이 지금 현재 경례를 하면서 여기에 그 헌정식을 갖다가 대표하는 이런 모습입니다. 그래서 그 소위 말하는 여기에 계시는 분들에 대해서 존경의 표시도 되고, 그리고 우리 유엔 기금의 75년을 처음 알리는 신호도 돼서 소위 말하는 저로서는 여기를 담당하고 있는 저로서는 굉장히 소중한 그런 사진으로 제가 여기고 있습니다.
네.
예.
The pictures of soldiers looking at the last remains of a deceased comrade to ascertain his identity, and the interment ceremony of Lieutenant Colonel Marinus den Oden, the commanding officer of the Netherlands forces, show how sincere the country was to honor the fallen soldiers even during the war. After so many years, more than 2,300 fallen soldiers from 14 countries have been laid to rest. The UNMCK honors the anniversary of each of the soldiers' deaths with a flag and a chrysanthemum that day. The place started as a site to remember fallen soldiers during the Korean War, but for 75 years it has become more than that. Now it is a site for diplomacy, a site that delivers a message of peace to us and to future generations.
So I was checking the ages of the soldiers, between 20 and 24 years old, coming from different countries. They are really gone in the flower of their age, and I always question myself about why. It's the question to every war. I still cannot find an answer to it. Especially today, we are also witnessing the war in Iran, in Lebanon. So this connects a lot with each other.
Serving as a meaningful venue where global leaders can better understand a key chapter of Korean history and strengthen bilateral ties, the custodian now hopes to see more descendants visit and connect with this place.
So many visitors who came here are a little bit older generations. I would like the young generations to come here to know what place it is. So as a part of that the effort, this year we are making effort to collaborate with the very much influential cartoonist.
From a resting place for the fallen to a symbol of peace, as the UNMCK looks ahead to the next 75 years, it hopes this place will continue to resonate across generations. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News, Busan.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. Russia launched its deadliest attack on Ukraine this year overnight on Wednesday, killing at least 17 people. The massive wave of drone and missile strikes across Kyiv, Odessa, and Dnipro also left more than 100 people wounded. In Kyiv, a drone slammed into an 18-story apartment building in the early morning hours. 4 people died in the capital, 8 in Odessa, where a high-rise residential building took a direct hit, and 4 more in Dnipro, where Russian strikes set residential buildings ablaze. Rescue operations were still ongoing Thursday, with officials warning the toll could rise. Ukraine struck back at Russia, hitting 2 oil depots in Crimea and a major oil refinery port on the Black Sea. President Zelensky said the attack proved Russia deserves no easing of sanctions and called on the international community to deliver every promised package of military assistance without delay. The White House is moving to give federal agencies access to Anthropic's most powerful and closely guarded AI model, Mythos, even as senior officials warn the tool could dramatically increase cybersecurity risk if it falls into the wrong hands. The White House Office of Management and Budget told officials at the Pentagon, Treasury, Justice Department, and other top agencies on Tuesday that safeguards are being put in place, with more details in the coming weeks. Anthropic has so far limited Mythos to a small group of technology and financial firms after internal testing showed the model could uncover the kind of critical software vulnerabilities that only the world's best hackers could find. Europe has roughly 6 weeks of jet fuel left. That's according to the head of the International Energy Agency on Thursday, who warned that if the Strait of Hormuz remains blocked, flight cancellations could begin soon. Calling the current situation the largest energy crisis the world has ever faced, the IEA chief said that without a permanent reopening of the waterway by end of May, countries could slide toward recession. He added that even with a peace deal, war damage to the region's energy facilities could take up to 2 years to fully repair. 6 days after splashing down in the Pacific, the Artemis II crew faced the cameras in Houston on Thursday and said that a landing on the moon is closer than people think. Mission Commander Reed Wiseman said if a lunar lander had been aboard, at least 3 of his crewmates would have tried to land on the moon right then and there. Wiseman called the next step technically challenging, but absolutely doable and coming soon. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
It was a cool day today with rain tapering off at different times across the country. The rain will ease up in Chungcheong province by tonight, in southern regions by tomorrow morning, and on Jeju Island by tomorrow afternoon. Mountainous areas of Jeju Island could see over 100 millimeters of rain, with heavy downpours of 20 to 30 millimeters per hour at times. Southern regions will see around 5 to 60 millimeters, while Chungcheong province will see less than 5 millimeters. Strong winds are also expected on Jeju Island and along the southern coast, with wind gusts reaching 15 to 20 meters per second. Meanwhile, dry weather advisories are still in place across parts of the central areas and Gyeongsang-Buk-do province, although some of these may be lifted as the rain moves in. Tomorrow, Seoul will start the day at 10 degrees Celsius, Chuncheon at 8 degrees, Busan at 15 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 27 degrees, Daejeon at 26 degrees, Daegu at 25 degrees. Looking ahead to the weekend, skies will gradually clear nationwide. Daytime temperatures will climb back above 25 degrees, bringing back warm, almost early summer-like weather.
Right, those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up next is our daily panel session, so do stay with us. And as always, thank you for now.
A country where traditional and modern cultures coexist.
Where you can explore spectacular landscapes and nature.
Savor the delights of traveling at every turn.
Where? Korea, of course.
There are some must-visit places in Korea. Ones that appear in every tour guidebook: Hangang River, Gyeongbokgung Palace from the Joseon Dynasty, and
Yes, these are essentials, but I want to go somewhere a little different. I don't have to follow the guidebook. For example, filming locations for K-pop music videos or K-dramas and movies.
traveling is all about taking it slow. A long walk at your own pace, or even zoning out somewhere quiet. Doesn't it sound relaxing?
You travel for the experience, trying something new in a foreign place, de-stressing and making lifetime memories, taking tons of pictures along the way.
70% of the Korean territory is mountainous. Naturally, hiking is a very popular pastime in Korea. Not your kind of activity? Trust me, the view will make the effort worth it. Just catch your breath by the cold stream in the valley.
Korea is surrounded by the sea on three sides. From the beach, you can enjoy a wide open view, as well as various water activities. But the riverside is great too. There's plenty to see and do.
If you're in Korea, you can't miss the night view full of dazzling lights.
Yes, even the same place can have a totally different vibe at night.
Want to make unforgettable memories?
How about traveling to all corners of Korea? Join us next time to explore more about Korean culture.
On Press Perspective today, we touch upon the Korean way of keeping your home clean and tidy, as highlighted by the foreign media, and the story for wolf that ran away from the zoo. Do stay with us. Hello and welcome. It's Friday, April 17th here in Seoul, and you're watching Press Perspective. It's time for our weekly talk on the social stories here that have been making international headlines. And today we start with the art of cleaning, if you will. For more on this, I have Chloe Bogno with French broadcaster France 24 here in the studio. Chloe, welcome back.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I also have writer Colin Marshall with us. Colin, it's good to have you here.
Always good to be here, thank you.
Chloe, we start with you. So what is meant by Korean style cleaning, and why has it been going viral online?
So yeah, this has been these terms have been highlighted by the Daily Mail, which has been making an article saying that there was this interesting cleaning tech actually in South Korea that they dubbed the Korean cleaning. So it's mostly on social media that you'll see it, with people making videos to show the kind of daily life and showing all of the techs that they have to clean stuff. So the writer in this article was wowed by a few different things. She was speaking about rubbish bins that automatically seal the trash bag for you. Easy, so that and stay clean when you have to drop them downstairs. Also UV sterilizer. So she was speaking about a knife and cutting plaques sterilizer. I know there's also some for a toothbrush, for example. That is probably something that I've seen more than the knife one. And then she was mostly impressed by a shoe cabinet that eradicates bacteria and unpleasant smell. So you just put your shoes in when you're getting home, because you have to take your shoes down out before, and then you will just close the cabinet and it will kind of clean and deodorize your shoes by itself. So it's kind of interesting tech. So that's what she said was called a smart living. So kind of giving away all the very tedious task to something else doing it for you. So I know that it's been also quite a lot in Europe, for example, the vacuum robots that are just no mapping of your apartment, and they'll just go cleaning by themselves, even mopping the floor, so that you have nothing to do to keep your floor clean, which is, I mean, very good thing when you have to vacuum by yourself. You'll be happy to get those kind of robots. And the thing is it properly Korean? That's the question. I mean, I remember seeing it quite a lot before as well, those kind of very short videos that go very viral on social medias, where someone will just kind of make a scenario of a cleaning task, and they'll just show you all the gadgets that they have. I would say what's typically Korean there is mostly the fact that it's very technological stuff. It's not just, I've got 10 different types of mops. It's mostly like, I have a robot making it for me, or I have something like, you know, the kind of, it's not, the first time I saw it, I thought it was a fridge, but actually, no, you know, the valet stuff where you can put your clothes in and it'll just dry it for you. Yeah, well, the first time I visited an apartment and they, office actually, and they were showing it to me, I was just like, why do you have multiple fridge and one is in the entrance? And then she explained to me, I was like, all right, that's really non-existent in France. So this is the kind of thing that I would say can be dubbed like the K cleaning and K technology that's used for the cleaning and keeping your house proper and tidy.
Right, K cleaning based on K gadgets then to keep your home neat and tidy. Colin, do you agree that Korea is one of the cleanest countries across the world? And if that is the case, how do you care to explain this acknowledgement?
It feels more clean whenever I leave Korea and go to, back to the US, for example, and make some comparisons, especially big city to big city. But when we talk about the cleanliness of a society, we should probably split this into two questions. One of them being the cleanliness of the public sphere, and one the cleanliness of the domestic sphere, so sort of the streets and the home. And those can be very different depending on the societies you're in. I mean, I've read that in Indian cities, for example, people are immaculate with the cleaning of their homes, but sometimes will throw garbage directly into the hallway of their apartment building. That doesn't happen here. But let's think about this. In homes, there is, of course, the custom widespread in Asia of removing your shoes before entry. And in the US, I think that's catching on little by little. It still remains a matter of controversy. That helps. Many people have a sort of intensive cleaning regime at home or think they should have one, so there can be some anxiety about whether your home is really clean enough, and products are sold that cater to that. And I do find, if you're a Westerner here, you live enough time in Korea, you do get the sense, or you start to feel like people are obsessed with dust. You hear the word monji, which means dust. I've heard it more in 10 years here than I have in the previous 30 I lived in the US. It almost makes me think, is there some animistic belief about monji, about dust? But I think maybe it's rooted in the sort of 80s and 90s when, as I understand it, you couldn't go outside without being covered in construction dust. And then more recently, the fine dust, the misemonji, for which people blame China, rightly or wrongly. So there's no smoke without fire, as it were, in that sense. But people do tend to keep very clean homes, even if they're full of junk sometimes, I find. As far as the public sphere in Seoul particularly, I think it impresses foreigners, especially Westerners, and especially in public conveniences, shall we say. The subway looks immaculate to really anybody from almost any other country, and especially the subway system bathrooms, which is something that you can't even conceptually imagine having in the US, let alone in a state you would actually want to use. I tell that to Koreans and they'll say, yeah, I guess that's nice, but first of all, if you're in New York, where do you go if you have a sort of emergency? What do you mean you have no bathrooms in the subway? That's a whole other question, but they will often say, yes, but in decades past, before the World Cup, before the Olympics, public bathrooms were awful. Okay, fair enough, somewhat irrelevant, but they always point that out, which tells you there has been a sort of evolutionary process in public cleanliness. Expectations have risen, you could say, in Korea. And so you can look very far back, travel logs from the 19th century. Isabella Bird Bishop, in her travels in 1890-something, is always writing about how dirty every accommodation is, just horrific sounding oftentimes. She loved Korea, but she would always point out just how dirty a place it could be, and that's not true anymore. Now, she was from England, but an Englishman, an American, whoever comes here is usually very impressed by the overall cleanliness of Korea. Well, they do point out that there is a bit, sometimes the garbage in the street or sort of junk piled up can be a bit much compared to certain other countries, but compared to where they came from, usually it gets passing marks, certainly.
Right, and speaking about public places, Chloe, beyond homes, of course, in public places, over in Brazil, efforts apparently to ensure that streets are clean and safe. These efforts are said to have taken into account South Korea's streets, among other streets across the world, of course. Could you tell us a bit more about this?
Yeah, so this is a local Sao Paulo newspaper was speaking about the fact that there is a neighborhood in Sao Paulo that's called the Bom Retiro neighborhood that's actually considered as the Korean cultural neighborhood, and they are getting the help actually from the consulate of South Korea in Sao Paulo to be able to get a good system to try to raise the community feeling, to kind of get also the place to be more clean, the streets, and to decrease the criminality. So what's been done actually from the Korean model, what they have offered as a advice was two things. First of all is what they call the broken window theory. So that's been developed in the United States in the 1980. And the idea is that if you let signs of discrepancy, so for example, broken windows, graffitis on the streets, if you left them like this without cleaning them, after a while, it tends to favor increased crime and also a feeling of insecurity in the community. So everything kind of being linked together. And the other thing is they are taking the same model as the Semail not community movement, sorry. So it's something that was done here in Korea, local development actually in the 1970s. The government realized that the rural area were not growing up as fast as the city. So what they decided to do was to give some money to kind of help two things, make more community, so make sure that people will be getting together as a village, and also develop collaborative work. So that's what they want to do now in Sao Paulo, is the kind of model that they want to work with. And there's been some first steps that have already been implemented with some success apparently. So they've been doing something that will be our store or cleanliness. So they are asking people, so the store owners and also residents, to kind of clean in front of their place. So, it's something that happens in quite a lot of countries, being like the pavement in front of your doorsteps are supposed to be yours to take care of. So I know that, for example, in France, it's you have to take away the grass that's growing there when it's not supposed to be there, or when there is snow, you just have to shovel them off. And the idea will be cleaning in front of your place, and if everyone is doing it, then the whole neighborhood will feel cleaner. And they were also saying that there is something that they called the Pomerietero Cleaning Up Day. So what they're doing is every Friday at 10:30 a.m. they team up so with the Korean consulate, Sao Paulo City Hall, some organization as well, and they're going together to clean up the neighborhood to try to give this more feeling of community and of security as well, coming from the cleanliness of the streets. So that's interesting organization that's been put in place with apparently some success.
Right, so you're taking a walk around the neighborhood and then picking up garbage during that walk.
Exactly.
Colin, do you suppose the culture of cleanliness it's cultivated over time? I mean, is this concept of collective responsibility for community a universal concept? Or?
I think so. As I say, you can trace this sort of progress from these old travel logs till up through the Olympics till now. You get a sense that cleanliness in Korea specifically has been increasing, public and private. And Korea as well is a country that shows you how fast a society can change in any respect. But this is one of the positive changes. I would say nobody disapproves of how much cleaner everything has become in recent decades or over the past century or so. I recall now hearing older foreigners here, older Westerners, tell me they'd have these expat gatherings in the 90s. They'd watch the movie Trainspotting. And those who have seen it will recall there's a scene about the worst toilet in Scotland. That would always be accompanied by a cry from the expat viewers, the best toilet in Korea, which tells you right now what they thought of the public accommodations at that time. Now nobody would say that. Now, you know, it's compared to most countries, this is where using a public restroom is not a bad thing. And as well, I mean, we can see this borne out in numbers to an extent. The company Dyson, the vacuum manufacturer, the English vacuum manufacturer, of which I was aware when I lived in the US, but I'm certainly more aware of it now that I live in Korea. This is a strong market for them, and they know it. And they've focused their efforts here, including by conducting a survey of their major markets, be it in America, Europe, Asia, a bunch of different countries. And Korea ranked #1 in how frequently they clean, how frequently Koreans clean house. And so I think Dyson has only redoubled their efforts. And when they put out a new vacuum cleaner a couple of years ago, there was one that uses water, like it has a water tank, so it cleans with both a conventional way, but also using water. That made the news here. So I think there's a real ready market for Dyson or any other company making cleaning devices, as Chloe discussed at the beginning. And that survey does not surprise me. The results don't surprise me. I think however much people do clean versus how much they think they should clean, they're probably doing it more in Korea on average compared to other developed countries.
Right. Chloe, let's now move on to another story here in South Korea that has received quite a bit of foreign media attention as well. I'm speaking, of course, about the wolf that ran away from the zoo before being caught safe and sound just early this morning. Tell us more about why has Neukgu been receiving so much attention?
Yeah, so Neukgu is a 2-year-old wolf that escaped 9 days ago. So he had kind of a bit of an adventure, actually. So he was in Daejeon City. He escaped. He was part of the zoo. He kind of dig up under his enclosure and he was able to run away. And so it was kind of hard to find him. So the search has been involving drones, police officers, military as well. And it was spotted quite a few times. We've seen quite a few videos of people in Daejeon filming it and calling at the same time, the police being like, I'm seeing him, he's there. And by the time officials arrived, the wolf would have escaped again. I mean, it's kind of in nature to be elusive animal, so it was hard to get him. The way he was caught last time was like they got a tip around 5:30 p.m. yesterday that the wolf was seen next to a park, and he was captured live in the night at 12:45 a.m. Near an interchange. So that could have been also a bit of a dangerous place, but fortunately they were able to tranquilize it with the gun, like, you know, the sleeping things, and they were able to get him back into the zoo safe and sound. So there was still, I mean, it was mostly kind of interesting things to see. I thought that there was even a meme Bitcoin that was made about him. There was a Twitter account, so quite a lot of things. There was also a bit of concerns, obviously. So the nearby elementary school was closed when the wolf escaped, so the one that was close to the zoo. And even the president, Lee Jae-myung, on social media put a message saying that he hoped that there will be no human casualties, and also pray that Neukgu was able to return home safely. So that was what happened, thankfully, because that was kind of what was getting people a bit stressed about, is how they would be able to get him and to capture him again.
Right, indeed. Our furry fugitive is called Neukgu. I'd like to correct myself. I believe I called him Neukgu earlier. So how do you explain, Colin, the public interest here in Neukgu's fate?
Yes, as suggested by Chloe's answer, this was a very social media suited event, you could say. People were getting their own footage, or if you could snap a photo or get a video of Neukgu, if you spotted this wolf on the loose, that would get you a lot of attention, and anybody could participate, but you could also follow it. You'd always see scrolling your feed, if there had been a sighting, you could just be following the story in real time, this wolf hunt. So there's something exciting about that, and people are, as you can see if you ride the Seoul subway, pretty well connected at all times to their social media feeds. So it was followable, and that's the modern aspect. But also, I couldn't help but think this has something in common with these old stories of a tiger coming down from the mountain and coming up to the edge of society, and the whole community has to mobilize to stop the tiger from attacking. And this is also fairly common, this kind of thing, in modern historical dramas too. So the wild animal entering the village, that's really a Korean form of story. So whenever a real-life event aligns with something, with a drama type storyline, or even a folktale, even the outlines of a folktale, it gets attention, and that's another aspect as well. But I mean, we can't avoid pointing out that this is the third time it's less than 10 years, maybe the third time in 8 years there's been a zoo animal escape. There was a puma in 2018, I believe, and then a zebra, even more eye-catchingly, in 2023. So at this point, I think the Korean public is prepared for this. And you have other incidents like the wild boars of Jeju that tear up restaurants occasionally. So this is almost a genre of public spectacle that people are prepared to consume, in a sense. And apart from those wild boars, I mean, these are pretty safe. They're pretty safe on the whole. I mean, a loose wolf doesn't sound safe, but it is a zoo animal. And just how small Neukgu looked really struck me. You think of a wolf as being huge. Maybe it's just from movies and old stories I think this, but this was the size of Neukgu was the size of a domestic dog, it seemed like. So doesn't really seem like a threat, probably more dangerous than he looks. But at the same time, I think this is the spectacle of danger without quite as much as you might imagine.
Right. Chloe, what can you tell us about similar incidents overseas with regard to animals that escaped the zoo, and how did authorities there handle those cases?
Yeah, so that's obviously not that frequent, but even so, in the recent years, I've been finding a few examples. So, for example, in 2022, in a zoo in Sweden, you have chimpanzees who escaped. So what happened is they escaped their enclosure, but not the complete, spot of the other monkeys. So there was 3 of them that were shot dead. What the zoo explained, because obviously people were kind of a bit saddened by this execution of the animals, what they explained is that they were at risk of harming people, and the problem is that tranquilizer shots take a few minutes, sometimes more than 10 minutes, to really get into the system and get them to sleep. Also, you need to be very close to the animal to be able to shot the dart in the right place. So what they were saying is that at the time they decided to shoot some of them because they were risk for human lives. The other ones were not shot, and they were just left inside the bigger enclosures until they were able to be retrieved and put back into their own space. It took quite a lot of time, because what they were saying is that chimpanzees are kind of fearless and they just want to run away, explore, so they were not able to lure them back very easily. Then there was another case in 2021 in Germany. So a lynx escaped, but that was just he didn't go very far. He didn't leave the zoo, actually. He went from his enclosure to the next door enclosure. That was the antelope. And he killed a few of them. So he was hunting, actually. But he did not live anywhere further. So they were able to shot him and try to put him back into his enclosure. But unfortunately, as it does happen sometimes with anesthesia for those kind of animals, he died before waking up. So that was another sad story. And it's kind of something that's also been happening in France in 2021, actually, also. That gets people a bit angry is when those animals have to be killed because they escaped. So there is a French zoo that was under scrutiny for quite a few escapes. They have got antelopes that escaped. They also had some other animals. And so in 2021, they had to definitely close because 9 wolves escaped from their enclosure. 4 of them were shot. The other one they were able to retrieve them. And this year in January, they also made again the headlines because even though the zoo is closed, they still have a lot of animals that are still there and taken care of, obviously, but they have a hard time getting them to other places because obviously the law makes it harder. You cannot just give them away to anybody. So there's still some animal on site, and 2 monkeys apparently escaped. And some people think that at the same time, a YouTuber was kind of getting into the site to show how easy it is to get into this zoo. So there's an old story about it. So that was another one of the harder time. And I was speaking about how elusive a wolf can be, but you can imagine that catching a monkey is also a hard thing. So they've been like kind of having a fun time in the village next door for quite some time before they were able to get them. And then to finish up with a more light-hearted story, June last year, 2 bears escaped from their enclosure in England, but they just went to the food store stash and they got into the honey stash, obviously, and they ate for the equivalent of 1 week's consumption. So, you know, a very nice, enjoyable dinner for them. And then the zoo was closed, obviously, to make sure that nothing could happen, and police was mobilized. But actually, one of the bears went back by himself to his enclosure after having his share of honey, and the other one was lured back using food. So, I mean, probably still had a bit of space in his stomach for more. So this story was one of the easy, nice one, and it's funny to see the people who are taking care of them, the caretakers, say that they actually did not destroy anything because they have a very good, strong smell, sense of smell. So they just went straight to the honey
to
get only the honey. So
they were
really
only interested in dining out then.
The big stereotype.
Charming story, charming story. Thank you so much for sharing that, Chloe. I'm afraid that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for that, Chloe.
Thank you.
And Colin, as always, thank you very much for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you, Sunny.
Right, that ends Press Perspective for this week. Have a great weekend. Thank you for watching.